Rabbit Hole put out a 6-year-old rye whiskey at cask strength for $200. Might be a collector's edition, but let's see if it's worth your money as I check out the Boxergrail Founders Collection. Let's get into it. Hello everybody and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary, where I do the research to try to teach you a little something about what you're drinking. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Boxergrail Founders Collection. Now this is a limited release version of their Boxergrail, which has been aged a little longer. It's a cask strength. We'll talk about all that in a minute. But it's important to know that Rabbit Hole did send me this bottle for review purposes. So the integrity of the channel is important to me. I want you guys to know if I got a free bottle, so there you go. Now, back in 2012, the brand Rabbit Hole was established, and it took them a few years, but in 2018, they opened the doors to this absolutely beautiful distillery that they have there. Things like completely made out of glass, it's totally see-through, it's this whole concept of transparency in whiskey, which they brought into their actual building. Now, I talked all about this in the bourbon episode I did up there, if you're interested at all in clicking on it. So, other than that, let's talk about this whiskey. This is a very limited release of the Boxergrail Founders Collection. This is 1,315 bottles. This is bottle number 22, which is something I've been kind of nerding out a little bit over the last few days because it's such a low number. Like, the collector in me really didn't want to open this, but, you know, the guy that actually likes to drink whiskey totally did. And the guy who likes to give you guys reviews of this stuff totally did. And so I totally did. But whatever. So this is a 95.5 mash bill, 95% rye, 5% malted barley. And, you know, you might recognize that if you're familiar with MGP at all, or if you really watched much of my show. A lot of ryes have that mash bill, and there's a reason for it. It's award-winning. It's good. It highlights the rye. If you're going to make a rye, highlight the rye. Doing 100% rye is a thing too, but in my mind, adding that little bit of barley does kind of smooth things out a little bit. It kind of balances a little better. So anyway, this spends 6 years in a barrel, putting the bottle at 114.6 proof, which is 57.3% ABV. And that's it. 7 barrels, 1,315 bottles. So let's talk about the nosing and the tasting. Now, something to know too is that this cork is very similar to the Glenmorangie Signet, where the cork itself is like 2 pounds. Like, you could kill somebody with this thing and just, you know, so anyway, I think you probably heard that. Let's go ahead and pour this out. All right. Now, when we nose this, keep in mind it's 57%, so slight burn if you get a little too close. All right. Now, I will say that nosing this and tasting this have been a highlight for me for the last couple of days. I guess you'd call it a little bit of a spoiler. But I've only had this bottle for a few days at this point, so it certainly hasn't opened up to the air, although you can kind of see I've drank a little bit of it. But let's go ahead and nose. So orange, like a honey tea. I want to say peach, but it's more like a peach syrup because it's very sweet. And those two scents are kind of tied together. Like there's this, it's almost like smelling a peach, but having it just be loaded with like sugar water. I don't know if you guys kind of get that. Speaking of sugar, caramel, a little bit of black pepper on a nose. There's just a little bit of spice to it from the rye, obviously. But the important thing to know here is that a couple of those scents are bold, but most of it's nuanced. You kind of got to dig a little bit in this one, but that's a good sign, at least to me. That shows a well-balanced whiskey. So let's go ahead and have a taste. Cheers. And cheers to Adam, who sent me the bottle. So, immediately sweet. It's creamy. Now, when I say creamy, again, I'm referencing, sorry, this is, the finish on this is out of control. It's like I'm salivating while trying to talk. So the creaminess is very similar to the Northern Harvest Rye, how that was creamy, if you've tasted that before. There's bourbons out there that are creamy. There's a few other things. I've described it in a few other whiskeys that have this taste, but it's just very good. It's got rye spice. Something about the rye spice along with the high ABV to me makes this drink hotter than 57%. Closer to like 60, which I realize is close. But when you drink a lot of whiskey, kind of like you can tell that difference, right? But rye in general to me always tastes a little more alcohol, but how do I describe this? Stronger. Let's just say stronger, because it doesn't taste like alcohol. It tastes like a stronger alcoholic beverage. So, black pepper, caramel, no peach actually, which is interesting. No peach on the taste, and a little bit reminiscent of, say, like New Riff rye, which is interesting because that's down at like 50%. I wouldn't say it's identical or anything like that. It just somehow reminds me of that. Probably just because New Riff is a bit of a stronger rye. So there's something in the finish that took me a while to identify. And if any of you happen to get this bottle, I would love to know if you get it as well. Black licorice on the finish. Now, I've used the term anise before. I'm not sure if everybody here knows what anise is. It's like the star-shaped little spice. I guess you'd call it a spice. But in general, it's this star-shaped little thing, and it tastes like licorice, right? So, black licorice, anise, whoever you're listening to, that's what they mean. I'm going to have one more sip of this. Yeah, that's most of it. The creaminess does start to go away pretty quickly, so it's going to be one of your first couple of sips that really expresses that, but most of the other flavors stick around. Now here's the thing. Let's talk overall, because I know that's what you guys are waiting to hear. Is this worth $200? Well, $195 MSRP. Tough call. Here's the deal. I don't know what your money's like. I know what my money's like. Would I personally pay $200 for this? No. But I genuinely don't know the last time I spent $200 on a whiskey. It's not really a thing I do. I usually don't buy overly high-priced whiskeys. And it's just kind of, for me, it's just not in the budget, right? But in this case, what is this? What are you getting for $200? I see this as a good rye. Like, actually, honestly, a great rye. I see this as a great rye that if you were to hand me blind and say, Bill, what do you think this is worth? I'd probably say like $85, $90, somewhere in there. I'd probably say, damn, that's a good rye. But I'd probably say it was worth like $85 to $90, which is way more than what I usually drink. I usually buy like Pikesville, which is, I think, somewhere in the realm of like $45 or so. And I like that one a lot. But this one blows that out of the water. So let's just say $90. It's a collector's item from a brand new distillery that is opening, or that has opened and is on the Bourbon Trail. It is probably going to be the first of many of their Founders Collection, probably going to do one of each different expression. So that's a thing. I see this as not a $200 whiskey, but I see it as a $200 collector's item. So if that's a thing that you're into, and you're the kind of person who would buy, something that came in a series of 1,315 bottles, this is probably a good investment. Honestly, I do think this is a good investment, because I think Rabbit Hole's here to stay. I think they're doing fine, if not great. I think that because of their existence on the Bourbon Trail, they're only ever going to grow. And I think that they're planning on doing these more, Like, it's not, I don't know that they'll ever do this exact one again. Actually, they never will, because it was those 7 barrels. It wasn't necessarily a flavor profile that they were going for. It was just those 7 bottles barrels are what we want to do. This is the only time that you'll ever get this particular whiskey. So I don't know. It's a tough call. In fact, too much of a tough call, to the point where I don't know that I can give a good recommendation. Because as I said, I don't know what your budget's like. If you're the kind of person who would spend $200 on a collector whiskey, it's a good investment, I feel. If you're not, probably can't find it anyway. So, anyway. All right. Well, there's my, I guess, half-hearted decision on whether you should buy it or not. It's really more up to you. So thank you guys very much for joining me here on the Whiskey Dictionary. Please check out the Patreon. There's descriptions there's a link in the description below, and all of these wonderful people here who have donated. Check out the merch store. There's all kinds of stuff down there, and in general, just kind of go check out the site. So have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.